Hello, this is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. Today we have a question. How do you hold it together when you're a full-time working parent and now also a full-time stay-at-home parent to a younger child and you have no support to help you out? How do you do both by yourself? To be both a teacher and a parent and an employee all working from home at the same time? Sadly, this is a question many of us today are actually dealing with on an everyday basis. We have to figure out how we can parent a child, in this case a younger child, to work the job that we have to telecommute to, as well as trying to do maybe even schoolwork with some of our children. Some of us have multiple children where we're trying to balance all this out, and it becomes very difficult. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that we can make this a little easier. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say to you there's going to be a magic solution for every single case. And the truth is, in each case, you could do things a little differently, but I'm going to try to give you some guidelines that might be helpful in terms of setting yourself up for greater success. First off, don't think you're going to do everything perfect. The idea of holding yourself to a standard that I'm going to be the perfect mother, the perfect teacher, the perfect employee, all at the same time is setting yourself up for very great disappointment. What you want to do is the best you can with what you have and the resources that you have. You have to be able to stand up for yourself if there are technical difficulties at work. You have to be able to understand that maybe your child is going to watch a little more television or play more on a computer game or do something that you would not normally allow. You have to understand that you may not be able to get all the tasks done on a timely manner because some other situation has come along. And by the way, in this question, it wasn't even mentioned if you have a family member who is sick or dealing with the actual virus itself. And the reality is we have to become able to recognize our own humanity and be able to accept ourselves for what we can do. The concept of the good enough mother, if you know anything about the ideas of parenting, is an incredibly important one. And here we have to become the good enough teacher, the good enough babysitter, the good enough employee, the good enough parent, all at the same time. And realize that each one of us is going to have a different skill set and it's going to have to be okay. Now, if you're going to feel really bad about this, think about 100, 150 years ago, how parenting was. Who was watching the kids when basically the parents were working in the fields or out in the environment, and basically the children were roaming off by themselves. And even the younger ones, at a much earlier age, were doing things on their own that children today don't do. We live in an environment today where we are very much coddling children to a much greater degree. So one of the things that has to happen is we have to start structuring ourselves in a way that we can make ourselves most successful. So scheduling ourselves becomes very important. Remember what they say. Necessity is the mother of invention. And we have to use what our skill set is to make sure or help ourselves to do as best as we can. So when you're creating your schedule, understand what your needs are. Is this a child that needs to learn? Is this a child that has the ability to sit and watch a video for an hour? Does this a child that has no capacity to do that but could be in the playpen for a half hour? Is this a child that takes naps? Is this a child that is very rambunctious, but after running around for a while will get tired out and then you can have some time for them for a nap earlier? Is this a child that sits next to you and plays quietly? All these things would play a role in how you create that schedule. And you have to know your child well enough to think about what are you going to do and what is in their best interest. Now, of course, there's always going to be a wrench thrown into the works, and you have to be a little bit flexible. But when you schedule yourself in a timely way, and it makes sense, and you know your child well enough, you'll set yourself up for more days being successful than not. discipline. Had you not seen any of my videos on discipline or the aspects of what we do, please look back to the parenting videos, because this is where you as a parent and how you set your structure really helps you when you do this well. When a child understands the ramifications, the boundaries, then when these crises hit, when you say no, when you say stop, when you say you need quiet, they're more likely to follow through. It's important to understand that this happens because you set the parameters up beforehand. So, creating the schedule is first. Of course, capitalizing on nap time to be productive at your job is very important. That's the time you want to get the most of your work done. So you want to be able to utilize nap time as a means for you to be able to focus on that, on your work. When the child is awake, you may want to utilize electronics as a means of a distraction, or their favorite movie as a means if you have something important to get to. And again, like I said before, normally you might want to limit the time, but at this time maybe you don't have the capacity. I know in the hospital setting, there's something called HIPAA, which is basically the right of confidentiality. And in order to be able to give information, you must sign, normally in 3 places, that you're giving consent for your information to be sent from one place to another. Well, now that the coronavirus has basically caused us not to be able to be with each other, and we're doing a lot of things over the phone or over a computer, the laws have been allowed that consent can be given now verbally, which would never in a million years hold up anywhere prior to this crisis. And when we see and understand that these laws are now coming down, we also have to understand the laws are coming down for how many days the kids are going to be in school, how much learning they're going to get done. I know that I'm in the state of New York. In New York, we have what's called the Regents, and the Regents were canceled for this year. And the kids will get credit for Regents they never took. Crises creates the idea that we have to do something good enough. And we have to give ourselves permission for that good enough. One of the number one reasons that I see people getting very anxious is they're trying to maintain their same level of productivity, their same level of doing everything while going through this crisis. It's a very unreasonable expectation. You cannot deal with the death of friends, family, dealing with your child at home, trying to be the best employee that you can be while getting very little support from the outside. But that being said, if you have a neighbor and they're also quarantined and you know that they're doing a good job of that, and you have to be able to trust them, and if you do have that, then what you could do also is see if they also want to switch off with you with kids. In other words, if you have a neighbor that you know they themselves are very, very careful, and you know that they are not going to put themselves in danger, then you have the capacity to say, you know something? I'll take the first half of the day, you take the second half of the day, I'll take your kids, and then we can switch with my kids. The kids stay together, they have somebody to play with, and at the same time that you have the capacity to work and they have the capacity to work, and you create a small unit for support. Now I realize not everybody has that, but if you do, it's a great way to utilize the support for yourself and gain some clarity for yourself. Very important also, separate the mom and the business role. It's very important to understand that when you're working, that you're concentrating the amount that you can, and when you're being mom, be mom. But don't try to be mom while doing business, and don't try to be doing business while being mom. This will get you the most stressed out and make you feel like you're failing at both. Half measures avail us nothing. So focus on the work when you have to, focus on being mom when you have to. And again, being able to give that child the ability to self-play. And don't think, oh my God, I'm ignoring my child. I left them in their room for an hour to play, or in their playpen to play. Because children do best actually when they have time to sit and play. Now you have to make sure they're in a safe space. So you can't just leave them in a place and go, oh, I didn't check to make sure that the electric sockets were not taken care of. You can't do that. But what you can do, as long as they're in a safe area, is give them time to play by themselves. Music, playing a video, games, any of those things would be fine during the time period that you have to sit and set yourself up for work. And you want to be able to work in bursts so that you can do, if you can, an hour's worth of work, getting back to your child, give them a half hour's worth of time, and back and forth. Always keeping out that ear just in case you have to switch, but being able to do that. So you understand that keeping your kids entertained becomes very important. So you have to understand that the more entertainment that you have for them, the more different activities you have for them, the better off you'd be. Have coloring and paper ready for them. Have something that maybe even from work related, something that you can do to show them if they're interested and they're old enough to understand. Some children love to mimic their parents. So depending on your child and the nature of your child, it would depend on how much you could push that. But that really does depend. And of course, as I said before, plan for the interruptions. You don't know when the child's going to need you, when the child's going to need help. You have to know that the child's going to, at that time, have different needs. Some children, of course, are not toilet trained, so you're going to have to be able to change the diapers. They're going to get hungry. So make sure again, that goes back to the scheduling, that if you can schedule that better, the better off you're going to be. Which brings us to the next part. After you do all this, and then you finish up that day and you did the work and the child's finally asleep, it's very important that you're doing self-care. It's very important that you're getting emotional needs met somewhere. Now, it doesn't have to be every place, but it's got to be someplace. And whether it be doing yoga, eating healthy, or doing exercise, talking to people. Now there's the Zoom, or through Google Meets, or all the other platforms that people are socializing. Try not to isolate, and try to get a community of friends to emotionally feed you so that you're not in this alone. And it's very important not to rely on one friend or one person, because that sets you up also. Just you have to remember, everybody right now is under a tremendous strain. Everybody is being pulled in many different directions. Everybody has different aspects of their life being torn in different directions all at the same time. So saying I only have this one person, now they can't be there for me, and now I got nobody, becomes problematic. You need to have multiple places where you have the ability for that support. I love self-help meetings because they are wonderful places for people to get support. And there's Emotional Anonymous, which is a great support group for people that have issues with depression or anxiety or just mood issues. And it's a great place to be able to get support. And it's online and it's free. And it's a way to be able to connect with people who are dealing with similar issues. If you have a substance abuse problem, AA or NA or SA, or if you don't want to go in that direction, you have Smart Recovery, or if you have cigarettes, even SA, Smoking Anonymous, Marijuana's Anonymous. All these groups are out there for the ability to utilize for help. And it's very important when we are isolating or isolated that we don't allow the isolation to become, from our minds, also isolated. We have to understand we're very blessed. Had this been 100 years ago, 150 years ago, you would have no capacity to do so much that we could do right now. We have no capacity to be able to be as involved with everybody else the way we are in a safe distancing manner. So in that way, there's this blessing that we have this capacity. And we should use it because it's beneficial to us. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you like this video, please like. If you like to subscribe, hit subscribe. And if you like to support this channel, please go to Subcribe-star and become a patron. Again, thank you very much. Stay safe through this, and have a good night.